journalist, and this is going to be an interesting live stream for me to make. Um, First of all, sorry I haven't updated this channel for a while. It will be updated in the future. I am working on things in the background, things that will definitely be taking this channel away from a news channel and into more of an editorial review channel, which means the updates might not be quite as frequent, but I hope that by putting more time and effort into those videos, they might be not only, have longer impact and have more value. Maybe it's something you might even want to watch multiple times. I've always, wanted to make video reviews like Some Call Me Johnny and Mysterious Mr. Hunter and Animat. And maybe not the nostalgia critic because I don't really feel like doing big sets and all that jazz, but stuff is in the works in the background. My final video was never going to be something where I discuss Kevin Spacey, but I might talk about him again in the future. But more shocking than the fact that there has not been any videos in a while might have been the lack of me discussing a certain news topic in the last month and a half. And that was the fact that um, MoviePass made a settlement with either the FTC or the SCA, one of those two, where they paid a lot of money, basically admitting to some wrongdoing. The shenanigans of MoviePass were long suspected, but now we had confirmation. They would do things like purposefully meddle with people's accounts. If you hit an arbitrary number of movies that you could see, they would find a way to lock your account. Mitch Lowe personally approved, he was the CEO of MoviePass, that if someone used this thing with a little too much, change the password. And then they have to go through this hoops and these jumps and hoops, these circles, whatever you want to call them, to change the password. And therefore, you might miss a movie you're going to see. Uh, their business was predicated on blackmail, and this was a pretty big story. I mean, it was actually interesting because for a company that had not been active for a while, there still seems to be more to the MoviePass story, and we will probably continue to find out more to the extent of the illegal activities they've been doing. Now, interestingly, my channel used to be a MoviePass channel. Now, granted, there were videos before MoviePass, and there were even other types of videos during MoviePass. But for a while, MoviePass was the topic on this channel. And so for this news to come and go without a comment from me, some viewers asked why that was, especially since they could hop on over to the Apptrepreneur channel and see that, yes, I'm still alive. Yes, I'm still making videos. Why am I not updating this channel? And why am I not talking about this topic? This was pretty much made for my channel, right? I mean, I'm the MoviePass guy. I was out there singing the gospels of MoviePass, saying how great they were. And to be honest, that was kind of the problem. I was the MoviePass guy. I was always on this channel singing the company's praises, defending every bad decision they made for a multitude of different reasons. The biggest one being that I really wanted MoviePass to succeed. I wanted it to be there. I wanted to survive. And that was probably the main thing. And so when this news story came up, I have to admit, I wasn't surprised, but I felt pretty embarrassed. When I was reading this news story, and of course, watching John Campion, Robert Meyer Burnett talking about it, and discussing it with some friends who, at my personal suggestion, not YouTube related, but personal suggestion, said, "Yeah, buy the New Year Pass. They have it figured out now. They're gonna work it out. They got this new guy, and the new guy would quit a couple months later, and then they basically wasted their money." I kind of looked at it, and it was like, Wow, I had it completely wrong. Now, granted, I call myself the failed journalist as an inside joke. For those of you who are not aware of what the story behind that title is, I had a cyberbully. And the cyberbully, hey Ryan, how you doing? Would call me the failed journalist. And you know what? There are YouTube channels with tongue-in-cheek names. Like the most prominent one I could think of is Mother's Basement because the guy sits in his mother's basement and watches anime all day. That's his shtick. Then you have Clownfish TV, which might not be intending to be self-deprecating and tongue-in-cheek, but people who don't like them say, well, they've got clown in their name for a reason, even though I actually like a lot of their videos. So the failed journalist was always meant to be tongue in cheek, but I think what hit me when I read about the story about MoviePass, pretty much finally admitting to all the fraudulent things they were doing, I kind of said to myself, wow, I almost can't talk about this because when has the failed journalist ever been more appropriate? I completely got this one wrong. I was wrong 100% of the time. I don't think I said anything about MoviePass that was right, other than the fact that it was a good deal for a while. Um, but now I will say for one thing I will excuse myself is near the end, I kept the MoviePass pretty much till the dying day, and it was because it still held some value to me. Whether that was tangible value or sentimental value, you can decide. There were months that I was not seeing anything. I remember the last movie I saw with my movie pass was Super Size Me 2, Holy Chicken, and it actually worked. I think that was the last movie I was able to see with this thing. So, and also the way I calculate these movie subscription services, I subscribe to almost all of them. I subscribe to AMC, I subscribe to Regal, and I even subscribe to Cinemark. And you know what? If I don't use a particular service that month, it's no sweat off my back as long as I'm getting more than $125 worth of movie tickets a month, regardless which service I'm using. I consider that a win. So some months, yes, I pay for a service that I don't use, but I got so much value from the other services, it doesn't matter. And so that was still my mentality with Movie Pass at the end, like just that odd movie, like, oh, let's go to the Lemley in Santa Monica or Beverly Hills, maybe it was. And yeah, Movie Pass still works here because the average Movie Pass person probably won't see these movies. So here's what I'm going to do during this live stream. And it probably will not be very interactive until near the end. For those of you who are watching this after the fact, I expect this story will take an additional 10 to 15 minutes to share. So thank you if you decide to hang out during that time. But I guess it's time for me to just kind of wash my hands of the matter. I'm not saying I will never talk about a movie pass development again. They are making a movie pass docu series of some sort. I will probably talk about that one. It would make too much sense not to. But I'm going to talk about my history with movie pass, why I got so enamored with it, and really, I'm going to be apologizing for how I stuck with the company, even though it was pretty obvious that I should not have been doing so. So, anyway, let's talk about how I discovered MoviePass. And here's something that you need to keep in mind. I was a member of MoviePass before it was $9.99. That is something some people do not know. Like years before it was 9.95, I was one of the original Movie Pass members. I wasn't a member when they were doing the coupon vouchers, where basically you would check into a movie online and print out the voucher and bring it to the theater. That wasn't me. But I remember one day seeing a Facebook ad, and it advertised something that seemed almost too good to be true. And, you know, That's usually how these things start, of course. And it advertised, it showed a MoviePass card. I don't think it was a MasterCard at the time, though. I think it was American Express or Discover. It was one of those. And they said, see unlimited movies between 25 and $50 a month. Great. That sounds really good. Where do I sign up? Well, there was a problem. You needed a smartphone. Now, here's something that you might find interesting about me. I was very late to the smartphone game. I think when I look at this ad, and this ad was probably 2013, I still had a flip phone and I had no intention of getting a smartphone. I saw people become zombies in front of smartphones, and I did not want to become that person. However, here was a service that was advertising basically unlimited movies for a fee a month, somewhere between 25 to $55. But I needed a smartphone. So that's when called my dad and said, "Hey, do you still have an Android lying around that I can have?" And he was like, "Well, yeah, but you've never shown interest." I'm like, "Well, there's a service I want to sign up for, and I'm going to need a smartphone to do it." And I explained to him what it was, and his reaction was, "Well, if that thing is real, you're going to get a lot of use out of that." So I got the smartphone, I put in my address. They determined that based on where I was living, MoviePass was going to cost me $35 a month. And I said, great, absolutely great. Great. I mean, because here's the thing, I was buying how many passes from Costco for Regal and Cinemark and AMC? I was spending a couple $100 a month on average on movies. If I could bring that down to 35 for the most part, great. Now, the service wasn't perfect. First of all, you could only see the movie once, and if you want to see it again, you'd have to pay for it at that point. That was fine. You can only see one a day, which, again, perfectly fine. Occasionally, I would see two movies in a day, but it's like, hey, you know what? If I can basically come back tomorrow and just not pay for it, great, that's fine. And also, 3D and IMAX movies were not included, which is probably the biggest blow because that meant that I couldn't take it from 200 to 35. There was still going to be about $85 a month spent on movies. Because if it was an IMAX 3D, I was not watching it on a 2D screen. I don't care if I wasn't paying for it on the 2D screen. I want to see it on the IMAX in 3D. And even as an IMAX investor right now, I am still pissed that I can't see Black Widow in IMAX 3D. So I guess I'm seeing it in RPX 3D this weekend or weekday, whatever. So anyway, but I remember when I got the card in the mail and I went to use it the first time. I went to a Cinemark and I selected, I believe it was Lion. And I checked in to the movie. It said you've got 10 minutes to use your card. I handed the card, they swiped it, and a ticket was printed. Something that I normally would have spent. Well, the ticket itself would have been $15. But since I was good at using the Premier passes at Costco, okay, that's $8. $8. And I loved it. It was like great, absolutely great. I'm going to be using this forever. Well, as long as the service is around. And I just kept using it. In fact, I got it around Oscar season, and that is when I actually first started writing my Oscar books because it's like, hey, I can see all the Oscar movies. I could see the Pentagon Papers documentary. I can see My Life as a Zucchini. I can see all these movies. It was wonderful. And there were definitely some snafus. Now, at some point, you start finding out little hacks to the system. For example, if you saw a Cinemark XD 3D movie early enough, MoviePass would not recognize that that was a lower priced ticket. So you could see the XD screening um, with the Movie Pass. That was great. At first, you could use the Movie Pass to partially pay for the movie ticket, but Movie Pass figured out that, hey, if the ticket costs more than what they put on the card, it's probably a premium screening and it would just outright decline. I found that out when I went to see The Jungle Book in IMAX 3D, and what had worked as a partial payment for a while, it just didn't go through. So I just whipped out my debit card, paid for it as I normally would, sent an email to MoviePass like, yeah, we detected that it was an expensive ticket, so it was probably a premium. It's against the terms of service to use that. So that was basically their way of saying like, yeah, we know you tried to screw the system, but don't do it again. And once I figured that out, okay, fine. Now, this worked good for about a year and a half, and then Mitch Lowe came on as the CEO of MoviePass, a man who I have defended way more than I should have. And with the recent revelations that he was deliberately trying to sabotage people from using the service, he probably was not the genius that I thought he was. But he made a major change to the MoviePass service, a change that I deeply loved and everyone hated. Yeah, no, his first major decision as MoviePass CEO was not to lower the price of MoviePass. In fact, he raised the price. He raised the price to $100 a month. $100 a month for MoviePass. That's what it costs. Now, of course, Twitter, because I guess MoviePass was big enough that it could get trending on Twitter, did not like this. They said, "Oh my gosh, like $100? Are you nuts?" Now, I did not have that reaction. Actually, I looked at that price point and I was like, let's see here. IMAX tickets cost this. There's this many a month. And I said, that will probably work. It'll probably work. However, I wanted to make sure. So that was actually when I made my first MoviePass video, to my knowledge. It was a video of me actually marking how much the ticket would have cost and how much I used. First month, I got $191 used out of it. The next month, I got over $200. Paying $100 for MoviePass was still a bargain to me. And for people who say, well, you were the only one who were okay with that, maybe I was, but now where am I at now? I'm paying $100 a month for AMC, Regal, and Cinemark for both me and my wife. So clearly, $100 a month for movies is doable. And again, keep in mind, I would on average spend $150 to $200 a month on movies, some months even more. So I was still saving a ton on MoviePass. And I think while it was $99, there was one month where I only got like $73 used out of it, and they got to make $27 off me. Oh well, I'll live with that. There are months that I don't watch anything on Netflix, and yet I have never canceled that bill. So, you know, people who, in fact, I will argue, like, for some people who did not want to sign up for MoviePass when it was $10 because they're like, oh, well, I don't know if I'll use it enough to justify it. What if there's a month that I don't watch movies? Well, then you don't watch movies that month. You probably subscribe to Hulu and Netflix, never cancel it, and yet there are months you don't watch it and you don't think twice about it because it's inexpensive. But, you know, that's kind of besides the point. So I was loving MoviePass at $99, but they had a serious growth problem because here's the thing. Try recommending to a friend to pick up AMC Subs A List at $25 a month. Now, most of us know that that person will get their money back almost every month. There might be 1 or 2 months where they don't, but most months they will get that money back because they have to go twice. Twice. Oh, well, welcome, Holy WWE. I'm always glad to hear a new subscriber. You can get, if you saw 2 movies, you pay for that thing. And the average person sees 2 movies a month. Heck, the average person sees 3 movies a month. It's not uncommon for people to do that. And yet, they would not subscribe to it. Most people still will not subscribe. I have gifted $25 AMC gift cards to friends and said, hey, the week Black Widow comes out, use these gift cards, sign up for it, get a bunch of free movies on me. You will never go back. They still have not signed up, and they don't intend to because the wife is like, well, I've got Cinemark. Why do I need this too? Cinemark's like a mile closer to me, and it's like, oh, nameless person, if you are watching this, save money. I know you say that you are not concerned about money. That is a false statement. Because here's the thing, you say, well, I don't care about the money I spend because money does not matter. Well, guess what? Then I guess spending $25 a month, whether you use it or not, also would not matter because money doesn't matter. But anyway, I probably should not have put that in there because most of you have no idea what I'm talking about. But yeah, here's the key thing. $25 is hard to sell on people. So you hold this thing up and say $100 a month. You can see all the movies you want, and people say, get the F of town. We do not want to spend $100 a month on movies, even though most of the time they probably would do anyway. So here's the thing. This was obviously not a way to grow the business. So Mitch Lowe decided he was going to do something extremely drastic. Extremely drastic. He was going to lower the price of Moviepass from $100 to 10, and that got headlines. People started doing the math, and that was math that was easy. In most places, you had to see one movie, and it was paid off. Well, okay, clearly people see one movie, and once that's paid off, well, then you'll see as many as you want. I know people who sorry, got this thing, and they just went to the movies. They just went to a movie every single day, whether they wanted to watch that movie or not. I know someone who would go to the movie so often, like he would actually go see a movie to take a nap. I'm like, why don't you just take a nap at your house? He's like, well, I mean, it doesn't cost me anything. Yeah, it doesn't cost me anything to stay at home either. But that was probably an indication of some of the problems. And here's the thing, it worked. It really got people to pay attention. But as Stacy Stacks, the founder of MoviePass, said, it was supposed to be a promotional item, a promotional price, I should say, where like once they hit like 100,000 subscribers, it was going to come back to like somewhere around $20 to $30 a membership. But it was so successful, they hit like 300,000 very fast, and they decided, well, they were going to keep doing it. And he's like, but 9.95, it's just not going to work. And yeah, it just wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to work, especially when they did that. They did not, they actually took away a lot of the restrictions. Now, here's something I probably might have forgot to mention. When it went to $99, obviously a lot of restrictions were lifted. You can now see IMAX 3D movies. You can see 3D movies. If the theater had a 40X, guess what? You could see a 40X. You're paying $100 a month. There was still at least one restriction, though. You could only see the movie once. You could only see the movie once. And that's perfectly fine. It's fair. It makes sense. When it went to $10, first of all, the 3D and the IMAX restrictions were reinstated, which perfect sense. But they removed the limitation on how many times you could see a movie. Like you could now see a movie again and again and again. Now, in all fairness, if you wanted to do a hack, something you could do if you wanted to see a movie twice, you could select a movie that started near the same time that you didn't necessarily want to see, check in, but then when you go to the um, box office person, you could ask for the movie you want to see, and that way you could see the same movie another time. So, there were little hacks about that anyway. But by removing that restriction, that would be like the first major blow against MoviePass, and what would definitely be called the Marvel effect for MoviePass. Because if there was one studio that affected MoviePass more than any other studio, and in all fairness, this studio probably hastened its demise much quicker than they probably would have otherwise. It was Marvel. Because, oh boy, do people like Marvel. I remember the first time that it severely happened. It was Black Panther. Some people say it was Avengers. It was not Avengers. It was Black Panther. So, Black Panther was a movie that everyone loved, and for good reason. It was a very good movie. And people not only loved it, they loved it where they were using MoviePass to see it again and again and again. That friend of mine who used MoviePass just to take a nap in the movie theater, and by the way, people like that were, in my opinion, pretty scumbags. Like, I mean, it's. I think there was a moral argument to be made that, unless you're going to actually watch a movie, you shouldn't use it like that. But on the other hand, MoviePass wasn't stopping him, so what could I say? But he went to see Black Panther 26 times. 26 times, just on Black Panther. So after that, and that was like the first time when they found out, like, how many people seeing Black Panther are MoviePass subscribers, and they found out, oh, you mean 25% of the $100 million opening weekend box office or whatever the heck it was MoviePass people? Oh, yeah, that caught people's attention. MoviePass went from being like, this is the great disruptor. This is the Netflix for movie theaters. So many people are signing up, they're going to take over the world, to holy cow. Netflix just must be being like the Joker right now. They're taking tons of money, putting a pile in it, and lighting it on fire. Like, what? How else can you see it? Anything like that? So after Black Panther, once Avengers came along, I think it was Infinity War at the time. That came first, right? Infinity War, yeah. Well, at that point, MoviePass knew they couldn't do that again. So they decided they were going to limit you to see a movie one time, which they should have done the whole time anyway. I wonder if Black Panther did not shorten MoviePass life by a good 2 years alone. But here's the thing: at that point, people have gotten used to it. And again, there were those little hacks. Even though if you check to see Avengers Infinity War once, guess what? If you want to see it again, pick a movie that you had no intention of seeing. Avengers had how many show times? Clock in and check in that other movie and go see Avengers again. So it didn't really work that much. That's when MoviePass decided they were going to do something that I'm going to say, even though unfortunately it turns out it was being abused in the long run, it made a lot of sense at the time. Where they were going to go like, okay, you can check into the movie, you can buy the ticket, but take a picture of the ticket because we want to make sure it's the same movie that you're actually seeing. Now that was, let's say for what it is, that was very annoying. And hindsight being 2020, yeah, it was not the smoothest process in the world. But you know what? It was one of those things where it's like, look, I understood at the time that this was a problem. I mean, I had been a user. I knew the blind spots, if you will, towards the MoviePass service. So of course I understood why they were doing it. It's because they're not going to trust people that they're going to see the movie they're seeing. Heck, there had even been stories that people realized there was like a McDonald's next to the movie theater. You could check into a movie and you could go to McDonald's a couple feet away and get a large number two with no onions, which is a quarter pounder with cheese, is the recording of this video, and use your MoviePass card and get McDonald's. And how are they going to tell you that you didn't actually do it? I mean, it's a credit card. Granted, I think they'd see a McDonald's charge, but people were using it for things like that. And MoviePass did not have the resources to crack down on the fraud. So this was one of their ways to combat the fraud. Now, again, um, if you didn't do that, then they would suspend your account for a while. It did ultimately get abused, but I understood why they did it, even though it was extremely annoying. That's also when they started partnering with movie theaters like the Triangle Square, where you didn't need to do that. You could book it online, and it worked very much like AMC Stubs A-List and Regal Unlimited. But it wasn't enough. People were still using it for the number one movies. And here's the thing: MoviePass then did another thing that made sense at the time, but it was implemented extremely poorly. They decided to do dynamic pricing, where you would see a movie, and if it happened to be like a very popular showtime, they would charge you a little bit extra for it, which I still defended it. In hindsight, it wasn't a very strong defense, but it kind of made sense to me at the time, where it's like, okay, yeah, if you want to see, then was there a Twilight movie out there? I don't know if there was a Twilight movie out there. Hotel Transylvania 3. That was out when this thing was out. Yeah, if you want to see Hotel Transylvania 3, brand new movie, kids love it. It's going to be packed. You're going to have to pay a few extra dollars. I mean, with how much this, in my opinion, would actually have led to MoviePass being used primarily for older movies, which typically don't sell as many tickets. And this was where maybe they could convince the movie theaters to partner with them a little bit more. Like, see, we are driving people to older movies, movies that used to have like a third of the attendees before. Now they're selling out 50 to 75% capacity of the movie theaters because people don't want to pay the dynamic pricing. So they're going to wait a couple weeks and then they'll use Movie Pass to see. And if they really want to see it right now, well, you know what? It's still knocking, $8 or $9 off the ticket. So they'll be okay with that, but it was implemented so poorly. Like, in some cases, the new movies, the dynamic pricing was the cost of the ticket itself. And then these older movies that MoviePass should have been, driving people towards, they were still charging dynamic pricing for movies where one or two people were in the theater. I don't think we ever figured out exactly how they determined what to charge people. And the only movies that seemed to ever not have the dynamic prices were the first showtime of the day, and that's it. Basically, anything that was an early bird special was the only thing, movies that were not getting the dynamic pricing. So again, it was I understood the idea behind it. It was not implemented properly, and it was rightfully hated by everyone. Now then, they decide to get rid of the dynamic pricing and they go back to 9.95. But it's been really established at this point that this is not working out. So then they start with a new plan, 14.95 for 3 movies a month. Now, obviously, this is a huge change, and this is like the start of people canceling their subscriptions. Now, what's frustrating about this at this point is you have to keep in mind people sometimes don't think things through clearly. They're like, wait a minute, I was paying $10 a month for unlimited movies, and now I can only see three? Screw that. And I'm telling you, well, no, 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 look, you're still saving $15 a month with Movie Pass. Like, why are you canceling? Okay, you can't see 20 movies a month anymore, but you'll probably see three and you'll save some money at that point. But for people, it was the principle of the matter. And as a result, well, it eventually led to Movie Pass. Well, they also did something else. They decided to do different tiers. Like, okay, it'd be like a 7.99 tier where you could see like 2 movies a month and they had to be 2 weeks old. Then there was like the uh, $15 a month tier where you could see 3 movies a month and they could be at any time. And then there was like the $25 a month tier where you could see 3 movies, but they could be Real D 3D or IMAX 3D or whatever. This seemed a lot more reasonable, but it didn't take again. And then MoviePass brought back unlimited movies, except now there would be certain showtimes that were blocked out and certain movies that would be blocked out. Oh, I forgot to mention before this happened, Mission Impossible 6, the movie that killed MoviePass. MoviePass at that point did not have money to survive a Tom Cruise action mega hit blockbuster. So the day Mission Impossible 6 came out, MoviePass went dark. They completely had run out of money. That's when they started implementing these new tiers, and that's when the dream started to end. People who had paid annual fees for a whole year of their membership to see unlimited movies. Now they couldn't do that. So it was very embarrassing. And here's the thing, somewhere in the midst of all of this, I became a stockholder. Now, I put my wife's iPad, I don't know if you heard that. Uh, Fun thing about doing it live. I had put about $420 of myself into MoviePass stock. Now, keep in mind, MoviePass stock was rarely expensive. And this was probably like one of my biggest regrets that I actually invested in it. I never actually told people to invest in MoviePass stock. I always said that, yeah, here's the thing, folks. I'm investing in it. I think this thing has a future. Doesn't mean you should. I learned some hard lessons about the MoviePass investing, but one of the reasons that I actually invested and I kind of stayed on that sinking ship was because I had bought Netflix stock when it was $20 at one point. I bought several shares, and it got as low as $7 a share. It's kind of hard to believe now, but at one point, Netflix was down to $7, and panicked that I would lose all my money, I sold my stock. It was like 20 shares. Well, that definitely turned around. So I definitely saw, and Mitch Lowe was part of Netflix, it should be mentioned. So I was like, yeah, the economics aren't making the most sense, but you know what? There are so many companies that lost money that became very, very successful. Heck, Amazon was not profitable for 20 years. And look at it now. Look at the stock now. At one point, Apple stock was like less than $5 a share. No one thought that would rebound. So I thought that I was going to take a risk. And with all the money that I saved on movies, $400 in a movie pass was basically me giving back to the company that had saved me thousands of dollars. Obviously, that didn't work out in the long run, but you know. So, but this is where things really started getting bad. This is where the oddest movies would be available for MoviePass. Um, the popular movies would not be available. The Spider-Man, you couldn't see Spider-Man, you couldn't see Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Um, but you could see Super Size Me too, which hey, that's why I was keeping MoviePass around. Yeah, I like seeing quirky movies like that. And Maiden's Voyage. I saw Maiden's Voyage with MoviePass in its dying days. The average person didn't want to see those movies. They're going like, hey, why can't I see Godzilla, King of the Monsters? Oh, I can't. Oh, I can sign up for AMC Stubs A-List for $25 and see it in IMAX, which is only $2 less. Sure, sign me up. So it ended up, and I even remember that period where MoviePass shut down their services for a few months. They brought it back for a little while, and then ultimately said, you know what, we have not been able to find sustainable resources, therefore we are going to be moving on. So, here, MoviePass made so many mistakes. Now, is there a way that MoviePass could have been profitable? Yeah, maybe there's an idealist in me that thinks that they could have been if they had good management. Like one of the things that MoviePass made a big deal about is that they were going to they wanted the movie theaters to cut them in on their concessions. The movie theater said, you're not going to do that. We're not giving you our concession money. And their MoviePass, their whole thing was about, blackmail. But was that really the craziest idea in the world? I don't know. What if MoviePass had come to one of the movie theater chains and said, "Hey, how about here's the partnership? How about here's what we do? You know, you it's like you and we will, go in on the movie ticket for the studios, but here's what we will do. Yeah, we will provide the tickets for free, essentially, but we will encourage people to buy snacks. We will also give people a 15% discount on the snacks. Now, What is that 15%? Well, that 50% you give to us, and we will sell more snacks for you. Because one thing MoviePass did show the theaters is that if people weren't paying for the tickets, they were way more likely to buy the snacks. Heck, I buy a lot more snacks at the theaters now. I used to never buy snacks. I'm spending $200 at the movie theaters every month. You think that I'm going to pay snacks? No, no, I'm not. But now that the movie tickets are, in a sense, I'm not paying for, yeah, I tend to buy a drink or a Slurpee or a candy or something just to show my support. The Movie Pass did show that. What if Movie Pass had approached a theater and say, we can encourage people to buy more snacks by giving them a 10 or 15% discount. You just kick that 10 or 15% off to us, which, for like a $3 popcorn, that would have been what, 30 cents? But that's a lot of 30 cents. And maybe it could have worked. Maybe it could have worked, but Movie Pass, they handled it wrong. Biggest mistakes that they made, and I might even make a separate video about this, like the top 5 biggest mistakes that MoviePass made. One of them, you could see the same movie over and over again. One of them, not offering different tier options early on. Big one, keeping the $9.95 for a lot longer than they need to. They could have kept a $9.95 plan, but it needed to be much more tempered, like, you know, 3 movies a month. But if you want the unlimited movies, jump up $20. Now you can see everything. And you want to see it in 3D and stuff, well, jump up $50 from there. There were ways they could have done it. Ironically, one of the biggest mistakes they probably made was a Costco deal. I don't know if any of you remember the Costco deal they made, but MoviePass made a deal where, a year of MoviePass would be like $100 normally, but they decided at Costco they would sell it for $89, and you got a year of Fandor as well. A year of Fandor, a service I had never heard about, but once I got it, I loved it, and I've never gotten rid of it. Maybe Costco is not the best place to push something like this. You have to keep in mind the people who go to Costco, and I don't want to poo-poo on people. I go to Costco for toilet paper and non-perishables and those Tyson chicken strips that are oh so delicious, and the rotisserie chicken, of course. But who is the main target of Costco? Costco is primarily by people who are retired who like the penny pinch. I mean, there are people at Costco who literally stand around all day eating as many samples as they can. And you're going to give them a movie pass. You're going to sell them a movie pass. They are going to use it every single day. Interestingly, the Costco crowd, they will probably use it more than the teenagers. Think about it. Like, you probably know someone, you call them on the phone, it's like, hey, Gamma, how you doing? It's like, I'm doing fine. It's like, what are you doing today? Oh, I'm at Costco eating the samples. That's what they do. And these people were buying Movie Pass, and once they had basically a card that gave them unlimited entertainment, they're gonna start going to movies every single day. I remember there was a YouTube channel, this lady, and I'm not, back then I used to poo-poo the people who did this. I don't anymore because again, I've matured, I've grown, I've realized, you know what? They are simply using a service that is being provided. It's not their fault if MoviePass loses money on it. They shouldn't have priced it that way. But there was a movie, she was doing like 365 days of MoviePass. And her goal was she was going to see a movie every single day. Is that even possible? Now, interesting, she could probably restart that experiment because when you do Regal and AMC and everything, you could probably start that experiment back up. It's just going to cost you a heck of a lot more than $10 a month. And I don't know if she wants to do that. But yeah, people like that, those were the Costco people, and they just didn't have anything better to do than to watch movies. And I mean, I saw people, again, like my friend who would go every single day. I'm like, dude, I'm a film critic. I run iCritic.net. I write reviews. You can buy my Oscar books on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And even I'm saying, you're going to the movies too much. You don't need to go to the movies every single day. Heck, even for someone like me who loves movies, over 3,000 movies in his collection, That's slowly starting to dwindle a little bit. Heck, over there, which you can't see, there's like a huge shelf of movies. I've got 100 years of Olympics there, right next to the Batman series, and I've watched them all. Someone who loves movies to my extent, and I'm telling you, it's exhausting once you see the third movie in the week. Never mind the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. Like so, you know, I don't know. That might be one of MoviePass's biggest mistakes. But the biggest mistake they probably made is that they really, and this is something that I'm hoping the docuseries does show. It's pretty well documented at this point that Mitch Lowe and Ted Farnsworth did not manage money very well. They were losing tons of money and they were for making movies. They were going out on parties with private yachts while they were laying off their worker bees. They were they were partying it up, going to the ATM every time they needed money. They would issue new stocks, which is why dilution was always a big thing. I remember as a shareholder when they first proposed a 250 to 1 stock reverse split. Now, what is a split versus a reverse split? Well, if it's a split, say you have 10 shares and it's like, okay, we're going to split 2 to 1, that means you will have 20 shares. They'll be worth half of what the shares were individually, but overall it would be worth the same amount of money. The reverse split is, say they have 10 and it's like, we're going to reverse 10 to 1. Well, now instead of 10 shares, you have 1 share, but that 1 share is worth a heck of a lot more money. Now they asked the shareholders to approve this and they said, here's the thing, we promise you it will only be used as a last resort and we will not do the maximum unless we absolutely have to. Well, we said yes, and the second we said yes, they did the absolute max they could and they did it right away. So the shares went from like 30 cents a share to over $20 a share. And then a week later, it was back down to 2 cents a share. That was a bad day, and I didn't learn my lesson. I still put $50 into it. So this is one of the reasons why I always stress to people when I make my Robinhood videos and stuff on the other channel. I'm not giving you financial advice. If I lose this all, I will be honest about this. But I'm not going to be one of these people who's saying like, "Oh, buy this stock, make it go to the moon," because no, there's no guarantee that's going to happen. There's no guarantee that's going to happen. So yeah, that was a that was a rough thing. Every time they issued new shares, obviously the shares got diluted even more, and they were not wise with money. They made some very bad plans. And now that brings us to my channel, and this has been way more than 15 minutes. So thank you, everyone, for sticking it out this long. But during all this, I made, and now my nose is itching, I'm sorry. I made tons of MoviePass videos. I was a huge fan. I wanted it to succeed because I was getting a lot of use out of the product. I loved the product and I love the idea behind the product. Now, being older and wiser, I can see why it would be successful for AMC and not MoviePass. AMC, first of all, they could control how many times you see a movie. Secondly, they can offer perks and they can incentivize you to buy snacks, and they benefit more from the snacks than the movies. So that's where AMC Stubs A-List is very successful for them. Same thing with Regal. Now, Regal does the unlimited thing, and technically with Regal, you can that's more like MoviePass than anything else. I have actually seen, I did one day just to see if I could see 3 movies in one day. I remember Jojo Rabbit and Pain and Glory. I forgot the third movie was. It was a documentary, but me and my wife went and we saw 3 movies with Regal. But Regal also tempers it a little bit because if you want to reserve your seats, they charge you 50 cents convenience fee. And hey, you do that a few times a day, they're going to get something out of you for doing that. So they were even a little smarter, even though Regal acts more like this than, well, AMC does. But I look at these, I look at those videos where I was blindly like just looking for the positive in every single aspect. Oh no, the ticket verification, that's a good thing for people. It wasn't a good thing for people. It's a good thing for MoviePass. Oh, the dynamic pricing, this is going to be good for the people. It wasn't good for the people. It could have been good for MoviePass. They failed to capitalize on it in a way they probably should have, but they should have. I should have realized, like, you know what, any service where like using it once a month loses them money. I mean, that one, it's kind of interesting. I should have seen that one coming, but then on the other hand, how did Amazon lose $2 to $5 billion every year and not go out of business? Mysteries of the world sometimes. Some companies survive on actually making profit, others survive because of speculative profits. I mean, Uber's never been profitable, and yet the stock is at $70 a share right now, I think. And it's like, why? They don't have a unique product, and B, they don't make money, but they're priced at a multi-billion-dollar value. I don't know. I mean, I genuinely thought that MoviePass would be one of those companies where it's like, look, I don't completely understand it, but like these companies, maybe it'll eventually work out. But yeah, after the report came out that MoviePass was deliberately being shady and that Mitch Lowe himself, rather than try to fix the business model, rather than try to make the company work, he would have passwords changed and he would use a ticket verification service against people. Like, you read things like this and it's like, I was a fool. I was a fool. I was willfully blind because I really liked the product. And even though, again, the failed journalist's name is a tongue in cheek name, boy, I got it completely wrong. And I was 100% a failed journalist when it came to this particular company. Which now begs a question, what about the old videos? Do I take them all down? Do I private them all? Do I pretend that they never existed? Do I try to, cover up my shame? And, in the process, I can also cover up what a fat tub of lard I was back then. I mean, I'd still want to lose an additional 20 pounds, but boy, I was really fat then. Do I just cover it up? And the answer is no. The videos will remain up. I see no reason to take them down right now. Heck, people don't really even watch them anymore. So, all I'm going to do is I'm going to hurt my channel in the algorithm. Um, and I think they kind of showcase that, yeah, even people who typically want to do the best they can and give the best information possible sometimes get it wrong. It's kind of a lesson learned that you can be overtly optimistic about things and going forward. Well, ever since then, I should say, I have been far more careful about how overly enthusiastic. Now I'm actually kind of a pessimist because of my experience with Pass. I definitely learned, like, you know what? Yeah, it's great that AMC stock is going up high. Don't get into this thing of like just saying it's going to get to $1,000 a share when you know that realistically isn't going to happen. It's done a lot better than I thought it was, and boy, I was glad that I bought it at $2 a share. That definitely wiped out any losses MoviePass brought upon, but so that's another lesson I learned. Sometimes you lose on companies, but then other companies can come along to make up for the losses, if you will. And I guess MoviePass videos, in some sense, will continue, even though the company is defunct. We are probably going to hear more about the shadiness of the company. And there is, at the very least, that docu-series. Apparently, they even want to make a movie, like an actual movie of MoviePass, which is what something people were like saying, like, "Oh, I can't wait to see this when it comes out." And yeah, I can't wait to see it either. That's going to be the most fascinating review I will probably ever write. Obviously, though, the channel will change. It has to, and it's had to change for a while. I don't think I want to be a movie news channel. I just, I just don't. Um, I think movie news is more drama than it's worth, and considering the Apptrepreneur channel has enough drama as it is, I don't need two of them. So you're gonna start seeing more editorials, maybe some more sporadic live streams where you and I can talk about certain affairs, certain things, certain movie experiences I've had. Maybe I'll talk about what I thought of Fast 9 in 40X. Something that I definitely call like, wow, that was a lousy movie, but that was a great movie experience. Or was it a movie experience? Maybe it was a theme park experience. Who knows? So, more movies like that or videos like that. As for MoviePass, my old friend. I mean, look, you got me an audience, you got me subscribers. People are still coming here because of you, so I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, it was a scam, and I should have noticed that years ago, but I didn't. So anyway, folks, I said we would do like the Q&A afterwards, but it's been almost an hour, and I'm actually going to SeaWorld tomorrow. So if anyone's in SeaWorld and you happen to see me, feel free to say hi. I mean, I'll be with my wife and some friends, but otherwise, for those of you who stuck around for a while, thank you so much for listening to this very, very long rambling of my history with MoviePass and my feelings about my old content. I won't get rid of it, but it's going to stand as kind of a reminder of what not to do in the future. Thank you to the people who gave me the thumbs up, by the way. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you for the people and the people who are Patreon supporters and YouTube members. Thank you especially because I don't think I actually deserve that money. I don't know if I do enough to earn that support, but I really appreciate it nonetheless, and I'm going to try to earn that money. Going forward, I'm putting more effort into the videos. You will not see as many videos on this channel, but ring that bell because when a video goes up, I hope it's going to be worthwhile to watch. It's going to be something you'll want to watch. It's going to be something you'll want to share. It's going to be something maybe you'll want to watch a couple times. I do want to do these things now, and I think it's not going to be perfect at first, but you know what? If I figure every YouTuber has that moment where it's like they want to take their channel and their content to the next level, and they're afraid, well, how's it going to look? It's going to look poor compared to these. And it's like, you know what? It's like riding a bike. Sometimes you just have to get on it and you have to start riding it, and you're going to fall down a few times. It won't be perfect, but at some point you will find your voice. I'm hoping I find my voice going forward. So thank you to MoviePass for kind of getting me started. But now that you are no more, I am on my own. I got to get on the bike myself. I and hopefully you guys will be there with me. Hopefully I will have earned your subscription. So anyway, folks, that is where we are going to end this one. Again, thank you for joining me for the last 57 minutes. You are all loved. Thank you for watching and take care.